down here. I know we're running a little bit late, but that is the Scale Omaha way. That doesn't change just because we changed the venue. Yeah, just take a seat and get some pizza if you haven't already. I'm going to start by just sharing a couple words about what Scale Omaha is in case you're not familiar, because I see quite a few new faces. And then I'd also like Charlie to come down here and share just a couple words about Nebraska Startup Academy, because something that recently happened was I, along with Jake Birkland, started Scale Omaha 3 years ago because we wanted to tell stories of successful entrepreneurs and investors in the Nebraska community that had built things that were successful, built businesses, scaled businesses here in Nebraska, a lot of tech companies, but sometimes other types of companies. And to us, it was really important to just tell those stories, to have them recorded on video so people online can find those. And it was really cool because over the last 3 years, you know, people have raised millions of dollars through the people that they've met in the room. People have started companies. They've come up and said like, hey, I think I'm going to start this thing. And then, you know, a year later, here they are like actually running that company and scaling it, getting customers. We can help them connect with customers. So, I mean, I think it just shows that there's a clear need for gathering people together around stories to inspire them to build more scalable companies in Omaha, which has a big impact. The problem is that me and Jake both work at scalable companies that require a lot of work, and we were just at the point where we didn't feel like we could really give Scale Omaha the love and attention that it needs anymore. But instead of letting it die, Nebraska Startup Academy, who has a very similar mission, decided that they would help continue it and make sure that it doesn't die. And there is a board of people that are involved that are volunteers that help make the Scale Omaha events happen, but Nebraska Startup Academy is going to help kind of spearhead that and make sure that it has the resources that it needs to keep going. And part of that is I just want to have Charlie share a little bit about what Nebraska Startup Academy is. And one thing that I always think needs mentioned is just like, how do people, you will talk about the platform sometimes, but like where do people literally go to like find the platform? So that's clear to people. But I'll hand you the mic.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Greg. One of the biggest things that our team, we're just so humbled that all the hard work that Craig, Jake, and the team have put into the last 3 to 4 years of really making Scale a cornerstone of the startup ecosystem. We're like so excited to be able to play a small role in ensuring that it continues on and the important work and the stories being told. Conversation earlier at Over Conversations was really about how do we make sure there's more awareness around startups, and this is absolutely one of the most important programs that exist, and we're just so excited that they trust us to continue the mission forward. In regards to the question on Startup Academy, on the website, anystartupacademy.org, there's a sign-up button in the top right and get you access to the platform. We're able to get founders on a lot quicker these days, as we have a lot more capacity there. But we've around 350 founders on the platform. We just crossed, I think we're into 31 Nebraska-based cities and actually 12 states in the kind of surrounding area.
That's great.
Around Nebraska. So really the mission.
How long?
We just crossed 2 years like a week or so ago.
That's outstanding.
Yeah. So one of the big things we wanted to do was just connect resources that exist here in Nebraska, so they're commonplace, but also resources across kind of the Midwest. Every time we're talking to people at University of Oklahoma or Iowa State or people that are, you know, small towns just outside of Denver, the stories are all very similar that we hear, you know, Wednesday mornings at Million Cups. Like, I think there's resources available. Can I really build this here? And so one of the big visions that we have for the Startup Academy is if we can kind of work together as a Midwest ecosystem, we can kind of rival any of these other tech hubs around the country. And so Scale plays a huge role in telling these stories and making sure that the founders who have found success, we have kind of beacons that we can look to in the ecosystem here. So we're excited to continue. Really excited about the Millwork team allowing us to move down here and continue on what we've kind of been building.
Awesome.
So thank you, Craig. Thank you, Jake. Thank you to the team.
Yeah, that's great, Charlie.
Excited to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charlie. And for tonight's talk, we have Mike Jung from Grit Road Partners.
Ventures or partners?
Partners.
Okay.
Intentional.
I always get that wrong.
There's a story there. It's
I'll ask you
intentional.
what that story is.
Yes.
Who invests primarily in, or entirely in ag tech companies, and he's got a really interesting thesis around that, so we'll get into that, and also a little bit into your background. But the first thing I like to start with is I like to kind of start with the end of the story, or for you, I'm sure you think it's more like the middle of the story where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
But where are things at right now with Grit Road Partners, and kind of the traction that your fund has, and what kind of stuff are you seeing in the tech ecosystem?
Yeah, nope. So Greg, thanks for having me. Scale Omaha, Charlie, John, thanks for allowing me to come down and be a part of this and kind of tell the Grit Road story. So for you all that don't know, Grit Road is, as Greg said, is an ag tech fund based here in Omaha, focused on investing in seed stage ag tech companies. No geographical boundaries. We'll invest all around the United States, and our guiding light or the guardrails are we're focused on investing in new innovations and entrepreneurs that are solving Midwest producer problems. And so kind of to put that into perspective, so if Greg came to me and had the best strawberry picking robot, we would probably have to do a hard pass. But if Greg could show how his solution was ultimately going to impact row crop farming here in the Midwest, we would take a hard look at it. So, but anyways, where we're at now, we've made 21 investments in 10 states, all up and down the ag value chain. That's intentional. When we initially started with Grit Road and we were doing our due diligence, and stop me if I'm talking too much, but when we were doing our initial due diligence and talking with investors and validating our thesis and ensuring that a platform like this was successful, the first red flag or wet blanket that was thrown on us was deal flow. It was like, well, where are we going to find these deals? If ag tech is so nascent and it's so laggard compared to the other tech sectors, well, what are we investing in, Mike? And so we were very focused on making sure we were looking at everything and anything out there, kept the aperture wide open, kept the mouth of the funnel broad, and wanted to look at everything from farm gate to processing to CEA to biologicals, biostimulants, and everything like that. So got a very diversified portfolio on our platform. We are here at the tail end of the fund. The goal was to do 24 investments. We've got a couple more to go, so we should be fully deployed here in the next 30, 60 days. And with that, our main focus with 2025 is to start to roll out Fund 2. So we've just started to have those initial conversations with our existing investor base, as well as potential new investors to kind of build upon the success and the infrastructure and the foundation that we have with Grit Road Fund 1.
That's great. That's a great kind of summary and great traction to. I think that I'd be interested in hearing just like a couple of the companies that are in the fund, just to kind of get an idea of like what exactly you're investing in.
So the one that's really popular around these parts, specifically here to Nebraska, say Omaha, is Grain Weevil. They are like our social darling. Chad and Ben, father-son duo out of Aurora, Nebraska. Interestingly enough, Ben was in the STEM program at Aurora High School, went to University of Nebraska-Lincoln in the robotics engineering program. The Honeycutt family, farming family outside of Aurora, saw what Ben was working on, came up to Chad and Ben and said, hey, if you guys can build these bots, can you build a bot that keeps me out of my grain bin? And I don't know if many of you know this or have family members, but grain bins are some of the most hazardous, dangerous places, let's say, in the world. We always read about articles, farmers getting in the grain bins, breaking up the top, not understanding that there's air pockets, quicksand type kind of atmospheres in there where they sink down and die. So Chad, Ben took it upon themselves to figure out how they could solve this problem that the Honeycutts were having. And so Grain Weevil now is on, I think, their probably 12th iteration of the bot, but have been extremely successful. About 6 years in operation here in 2025, they are actually starting to generate revenue. For those of you that don't know about Grain Weevil is a 50-pound bot with 2 augers on the side. a motor case with a lithium battery in the middle, and the whole point is for that to get into the bot and break up the crust and move around and move it so that a farmer will never have to get in. So, and as many of you are aware, once you put a bot into a bin, now you layer up with cameras, sensors. Now it's feeding all sorts of information back to the producer, the elevator, the offtake contractor, and everything of that nature. And so it's been an exciting ride for them. They're getting a tremendous traction. The one thing that's really exciting and also is great because of how Chad is from an entrepreneur. So when you think about grain weevil and the name and in ag and moving corn and moving other pistachios and things of that nature, it's a bot that moves particles. So now he's getting a lot of attention from some of the largest concrete manufacturing companies here in the United States, mining companies, natural resource groups, any sort of work environment in which they don't want humans getting involved to move around or extract or manipulate the services of these sorts of, if it's chemicals or other sorts of minerals. So, but what Chad's been good at is he's solely focused on, we're going to execute on ag, we're going to prove concept, prove success in ag, and then we can move into these other verticals. So Chad and grain weevil are a great example. Another one local is Marble Technologies, which is in the space of autonomous robotic solutions for meat packing. So Shafiq Babar he's a two-time or a been there, done that type of guy that we call. This is his second ag tech company. His first ag tech company was GrainBridge, which he built here in Omaha, sold it to ADM in Cargill, took some time off, went to MIT, got his MBA, came back to Nebraska in 2020, sat down with Tom Field at the Angler Agribusiness Entrepreneur School and said, hey, Tom, I'm looking to start my next company. What should I get into? And at that time, I think we all remember March, April of 2020, the world was slowly going to hell in a handbasket. And so Tom had said, we're seeing a lot of bottlenecks. We're seeing a lot of complications in meat packing plants. So Shafiq took it upon himself to figure out how he could create an autonomous solution that could alleviate the issues of labor within meat packing. And so he's been doing great. They're kicking butt. They're doing installations all around the United States. They're a great story for Nebraska as well. You can go to the Innovation Campus. He has his pilot product there in the Innovation Campus. They're flying in the C-suite from all the big meat packing processing companies here in the United States to come and kick the tires, to see Lincoln, to see in the Innovation Campus, but then also just to learn more about Marble and how Marble can solve their problems.
That's really interesting too, to hear like the two different backgrounds that like, I mean, I think you hear that across like all tech, but it's interesting when I hear about ag tech companies. It's not always just like a farmer, you know, although usually you want to have someone that like understands the industry a little bit.
That's right. Well, I mean, I think that's a big thing with ag tech. So, you know, I mentioned how ag tech was the laggard when we were doing our initial due diligence, and a lot of the issues we saw was the farmer wasn't at the table.
Yeah.
So you weren't bringing the producer in on the conversation. You were seeing these great tech, and I'll say this, we love our coastal partners. We love our partners in the Bay. We love our partners in New York and in Cambridge, but they weren't truly understanding what the producer needed or what the problem was and how to solve it. I mean, I think we're all 1 degree separated from the farm somehow. If you live in Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, this or that.
If you eat food.
But we all know that the farmer's never going to pay for anything. So that was a big disconnect for a lot of these platforms and solutions that were coming off the coast. They were coming in and didn't understand ag cycles, ag economy, who's the buyer, how important ag distribution networks were to the farmer, from inputs, from their agronomy and things of that nature. And so back to what you were saying, that is one thing that we've been really honed in on, is making sure the farmer is at the table, that we're bringing in these ag players to help in understanding what are the right solutions for the problems in ag.
I'm interested, this isn't where I thought this conversation would go, but I do want to ask a question on this, because there is something in the startup ecosystem kind of philosophy or like theory that like the collisions or something that matters, where you have people from different walks of life, someone who's really technical meets someone who's creative, or someone who's more like business savvy or something, or in this case you have someone who's talented in robotics that meets someone who like knows about grain silos, right? How do you think about what needs to happen for more collisions like that to happen to make ag tech less of a laggard?
Well, I think it goes kind of back to what Charlie said, is just being willing to be accessible and to work with others and to partner. Partnering is a huge part of the ag world. When we look at a deal and we're trying to figure out, does this make sense for Grit Road? In trying to understand what problem it is solving, is there value? Will there be adoption? We're very quick to partner with a lot of our investors as well as external partners to make sure we're understanding what we're doing. And what's been great about that is, and maybe this is just the ag way, but everybody's willing to help. And they're always willing to extend a hand, make another introduction. It's that whole coffee shop kind of farmer mentality. You get in the coffee shop, everybody gets to know each other, everybody wants to help each other out. And so as long as you're willing to be accessible and open to other people's insights, perspectives, there's a lot of people in the ag community that want to help and they want ag to succeed. I mean, I always joke, ag's a great industry to be in because it's not going anywhere. We always will all need to eat. So it's critical, it's the last thing that will ever go. So I think partnerships, to answer your question, are key.
Yeah, and the movie Interstellar, whenever everything's like collapsed, that's what everyone is doing, is working on the robots that are running the farms.
Yep.
Cool. I think I'd like to go a little bit into your background of like, why do you have this interest? You said you went to school for fine art. So how did you end up having the interest that led you to start Grit Road and care about this problem?
So I graduated from TCU in Fort Worth with a Bachelor of Fine Arts. And when I came out of college, I came out during the dot-com boom. And so I was really interested in the web. This was back when the web would have been if I had a website or a company had a website, it'd be a picture of that person and a contact page. There was not much to it. And so, but what's interesting, now you have IT programs, you have web development, things of that nature. When I was at TCU, they had these classes, but they didn't have anywhere to house it. So they threw it into the fine arts program. So I did all of these kind of graphic design, web, back with Dreamweaver and things of that nature, but they housed it in the Bachelor of Fine Arts. So I've got a Bachelor of Arts degree with all of this kind of web engineering background. But before Grit Road, or where actually Grit Road started, is an interesting story. So I spent 18 years with a company here in Omaha called Burlington Capital. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. That's the white building there on 10th and Farnham. So Burlington Capital would have classified itself as an alternative investment management company. Two main areas of focus: real estate, and the other side, if you go to the website, it's called international, and it's all ag business related. Investments, businesses, one-off projects, fee-based initiatives. And so I was there and I was on the ag side of it. And interestingly enough, when I graduated from college in '99, I helped start what we would have called then a web solutions business. So we actually worked with .coms to understand how to utilize the web. We actually worked with businesses to understand how to utilize the web, and we carved out an interesting niche with universities. So we helped create some of the first intranets. I don't even know if intranets exist anymore, but we created some of the first intranets, helped work with universities and actually doing web development, web technologies, creating web navigation, all of that stuff that was very nascent back there, which is now, kids are doing it in grade school, but there was an industry around that. So we created a web solutions business, did that for 4 years. And then unfortunately, one of my partners was committing fraud. So we had to close the doors on that. One door closes, another door opens, you say. And I got an opportunity to move back to Omaha, where I'm from, and started interning with Burlington Capital while I was getting my MBA at Creighton. And I wanted to do something different. They had this international side of things, doing ag, and it was new, it seemed fun. I'd get to travel the world and cut my teeth on something different. So dove into that with them, and so was there for 18 years, oversaw that international side of the company, and then in 2020 is when we really started digging into agtech and trying to see how we could see if and how we at Burlington could be a part of agtech and get involved in it, and ultimately created what is now Grit Road, but is now spun out of Burlington, and it's a standalone fund.
What are some of the biggest challenges you've run into? I mean, you talked about deal flow. Can you talk about that a little bit more? About just like, is that a big problem? Is there more of a capital problem, or is there more of a connecting capital to startups? Is there more of a not enough startups? Like, what's kind of the challenges there in ag tech?
So you're always going to have capital problems. I mean, right now we're in fundraise mode for Fund 2, so nothing happens as fast as you want it to happen. But from a deal flow perspective, I would say, and I touched on this a little bit, that was the first big obstacle that was presented to us by not only our investors, but by a lot of people that were just kind of watching us. Because no one was truly out there solely focused on investing in ag tech, especially at the seed stage in Nebraska, let alone in the Midwest. I mean, sure, there's other platforms out there that are investing in ag tech, but it's a small kind of portion or piece of their ultimate pie of diversifying their investments. And so, as I kind of hinted at, people would say, well, Mike, that's great. Ag tech's the laggard, but what are you investing in? So that was our number one priority when we launched the fund, was how are we going to create this pipeline and get this funnel so that we feel that we are seeing everything out there. I mean, we are connected to, obviously with Invest Nebraska and the Combine, we were seeing things that were here in Nebraska. We do a lot of work with Ag Startup Engine at Iowa State, so we're seeing things that are coming out of Iowa. Up in North Dakota, we're connected. So we're connected with a lot of different ag accelerators, incubators. We work with a lot of the land grant universities, so we're seeing all that, but we still wanted to make sure, how are we going to see everything? And so we created what's called, it seems very novel, but it's called the AgTech Deal Flow Network. It's a great name, but we launched that in January of 22, solely focused on bringing together or creating a community of like-minded investors in AgTech to share deals, to co-invest, to see what's out there. And so actually this morning was our call. It's the third Thursday of every month. And it's a Grit Road based initiative. We spearhead it. And so now we've got over 130 members all around the world. And so we're seeing things everywhere. And what's great about it, it's not just deals we're interested in, but there's R&D deals, pre-seed, seed, and then all up and down the letter ladder as far as what's out there. And so it's great for us now because it's helped boost our brand, boost our credibility, but it's also helped us in finding those other investors, because that's the one thing still with AgTech that's an issue is, if we're investing in a deal at $1.5 million, they're raising 1.5 and say our check is $250,000 and we're leading the round. So that's the other thing. We have led 16 of the 21 deals we've done because there's no one out there leading AgTech seed stage deals. But we have to then help go syndicate and raise that other capital. So through this pipeline, we've been able to develop these relationships. And so we've got a dozen partners within this deal flow network who we've co-invested with. We know kind of the flavor they like, their pain points, their interests, their check writing abilities. So we're able to fill these rounds, I don't want to say fairly quickly, but we get to fill these rounds at a good click to ensure that these companies have that necessary capital so that they can launch and move forward.
Can you touch on what kind of, like if you're writing checks at the seed stage, like what kind of traction in ag tech are you looking at maybe versus what traction like typical SaaS might look like? Like how do you determine what is a good investment at that stage? That's interesting because you're not looking at a lot of quantifiable information at that time. So of course, if it's a SaaS platform, we're really, we're hoping that we're seeing some revenue, we're seeing some market adoption, we're seeing some buy-in by some clients and things of that nature. I mean, we've got 3 robotic investments, Marble, Grain Weevil, Bird's Eye.
And we were fortunate with them that they were early investments in the platform. And that was a learning experience for us, because those are going to be very capital intensive businesses. And they're not going to be generating revenue. They're chasing cardboard checks and grants those first initial kind of 12 to 18 months. But I think a lot of what helps us with our due diligence and understanding traction goes back to us leaning on that bench of investors that we have. I mean, I would say 85% of our investors are ag heavy. So, you know, our first anchor investor is Schooler Grain. We have quarterly meetings with them, and now we have just an ongoing cadence where we sit and interact and share deals. And if we see something that's in the grain merchandising space or anything in the supply chain space, we sit down with them to make sure, you know, does this make sense? Is it valid? Is this something Schooler would be interested in? Or is this been there, done that, you know, walk away? So we've been very focused on making sure that we lean on that bench of investors. If it's feedlot operators, if it's row crop operators, if it's large animal vets, we lean on them to help us understand what is the traction that could come with these companies.
So you're really validating that there is a customer there beyond just what the founder is saying and might have discovered. You have a network that you're able to kind of tap on to see beyond your own experience what there's like a valid need for and money for.
Definitely. I mean, the biggest thing that we have, you know, if my partner was here, he says this all the time. If an investor ever says they're going to add value, they're lying to you, because investors don't really add value. I mean, they'll write a check, but what an investor should be doing is opening relationships and introductions to add value. I mean, at the stage we're at, we're not looking to babysit, we're not looking to micromanage the business, and we're not, and at the same point, we're not that kind of quarterly quasi-investor. We want to be there for you, you know, at 2 in the morning, something won't help you, something's keeping you up, you want to kind of send a text message or bounce an idea, you know, we want to be that investor for you. But we want to make sure, more importantly, if you've got a precision irrigation technology, we want to make sure, I mean, we're the pivot irrigation capital of the world here in Nebraska. You know, can we get you in front of Valmont? Can we get you in front of Ranke? Can we get you in front of Lindsay to have a conversation? I mean, you might be a little early for them, but they want to see what's out there. They want to know what could help them, you know, and how they could possibly partner with you or help you do trials. I mean, a good example of a good partnership, and if I'm babbling too much, again, interrupt. But so like back to Grain Weevil. So I don't know if many of you know Schooler Grain, but they're a privately held big grain merchandiser, hidden gem that we have here in Omaha, Nebraska. Schooler has been wonderful for a company like Grain Weevil, because they've opened up their grain storage facilities for Chad to go test their bots. They let him, this is a great story, they let Chad go out to a 2 million bushel facility out in, I can't remember, somewhere in Iowa, and I don't know if anybody know what a 2 million bushel corn storage facility looks like. It's like a couple football fields and it's 5 stories high. It's massive. But anyways, they let Chad and his team go out there for a week and test their bots. Chad broke all of his bots on day 1 because he didn't take into consideration that in these larger facilities, it's dropping at 5 stories. The pitch is at such an angle, all the bots' engines blew out just trying to climb that first pitch. So it's these sorts of relationships and partnerships and value that we feel that we can offer so that our companies are able to truly, you know, validate the technology, get mentorship and advisory from these potential acquirers or what you call strategics in that ag space to help them progress forward.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, that's true across like any industry, but having access to those customers or potential customers, even if they're not ready to be customers yet. And that's something that's really, I've found unique being around the country and about Omaha, is that there is kind of that open door if you ask for it, and if you have someone that knows someone, like usually you can get an open door into like the CEO's room, you know, right, to at least like be like, hey, does this make sense? Can I try this out? Like, they might not be a customer right away, they might not be able to invest right away, but they can at least, they're pretty open to feedback.
Yep.
And that's super valuable for an early stage startup.
Yep, and that's what's the draw. I mean, that's a draw to some of our companies that we invest in that say are not in the Midwest. I mean, a good story is we just invested in a company, it's out of Argentina originally. It's a feedlot management optimization platform. Founders are 3 Argentinians, come from the feedlot space in Argentina, started the company. They moved to outside San Francisco, but they've got roughly 300 clients in Nebraska, Iowa, Colorado, Kansas, and the Dakotas. But their business card says California. So we got introduced to them last spring, got to know them. They fit right into our wheelhouse as far as where we want to, largest feedlot operators in Nebraska on our cap table. We were able to do great due diligence and testing of the product with them. But ultimately, what's been good for them is when they got introduced to these relationships as well as our contacts, the door was just wide open for them. And so we closed on that investment in December, and what's great about it is they are now moving their headquarters to Lincoln. So they're getting office space at the Innovation Campus. It's great. They were here about a month ago to start doing all that move-in. They had already got their business cards changed to Lincoln, Nebraska. And so they are ready to make Nebraska their home. I mean, if they're going to be in the beef business, they've got to be in the beef state. So there's a lot of, but what they were so excited about was how open everybody was to helping them understand, if it's the grant programs, with the Business Innovation Act, how they can start intertwining or interacting with the other companies at the combine. I mean, they're in California with their families. They're not in an ag tech ecosystem that could help them in understanding the beef and livestock value chain.
Can you touch on, for anyone who might not be familiar, what the Combine and the Business Innovation Grant are?
Yeah, so the Combine is Nebraska's agTech accelerator. So it's office space down on Innovation Campus that creates that density of bringing agTech entrepreneurs under one roof. There's offices, there's no programming. Invest Nebraska actually manages it. It's been around, Shelby, 3 years?
Sounds about right.
Yep, so, and it's helped in creating that density or that community. I mean, I think Charlie hinted at, it's important to have things like Scale Omaha and the Startup Academy to allow for entrepreneurs like this to get together to, hear everybody's trials and tribulations and understand that they're not alone in the world. And so the Combine creates that environment for ag tech centric entrepreneurs. And so it's on Innovation Campus. They keep expanding and growing it. We have 6 investments in our portfolio from Nebraska. All 6 of them have come out of the Combine and accessed funding through the Business Innovation Act. So great companies. They come out a little bit more polished from a business perspective, but also from an understanding of raising capital and expectations perspective.
I'm about to open up for questions, but I have one question myself. If I'm talking to someone who's pretty early stage that has an idea, maybe they prototype something or maybe they haven't, in the ag tech space or adjacent to the ag tech space, or maybe there's someone in this room that's kind of thinking like, I noticed this problem and I think maybe I can do something about it. What is kind of that first place for them to connect into this ecosystem with the Combine, with you, with kind of just the broader ecosystem and resources that are available?
Yeah, I would say the Combine's the great launching pad for all of that. It's kind of the coming together of all partners. They've got a great insights network. That's a big catch for the Combine. The insights network is a gathering of 100 producers around the state of Nebraska who have agreed to work with the companies that are within the Combine to do trials, to walk through the product, to walk through their business plan. So you're actually, like, getting back to what we said a few minutes ago, bringing the farmer into the conversation. So you'll have direct access to that. Of course, you get access to a lot of the resources of the university, as well as all the different organizations and businesses that are sponsors and a part of the Combine. And then obviously, since we're here and we're active in the ag tech space, following up with ourselves as well as Invest Nebraska, they're another great organization, the hidden gem that we have here to work with you. Obviously they're industry agnostic, but meeting with Shelby and Dan Hoffman and Ben Williamson to see how they can help you in accessing different programs, funding, grants, and things of that nature.
Yeah, which there are a lot of, like the Business Innovation grant that we mentioned, or the Business Innovation Act grant,
Right.
Has some special clause about agtech. What's the?
Well, I know there's like additional matching components to it. If certain, I think SBIR grants you get, and again, the Business Innovation Act is across all, it's industry agnostic. So, but there is some favoritism to ag-based initiatives. So certain grants get an extra kicker. There's the prototype grants and things of that nature. If it's ag ties, they get just a little bit extra funding with it as well.
Yeah, those are good things that I think a lot of people are still not aware of somehow. So.
And that is a big draw for this Cattler company that's moving to Lincoln. They're ecstatic about that. And back to something you also said, which I don't think Omaha, we take for granted, but it is truly unique, and maybe because I'm biased, but it is that 1 to 2 degrees separation of getting access here, but you have to ask.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself out there. I always say, you have to get in the line of fire. You've got to get shot. It's going to get hurt, but you have to get out there. People are willing to help. People are willing to make connections and help. Ag is one of the last industries where the vouch still matters. People are willing to vouch for you. And so, but you do need to take advantage of that. And it's great. And it's amazing how quick you can get to decision makers if it's in the private sector or in the public sector.
Yeah, thanks. Let's open it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions for Mike?
What are some key characteristics you look for in a founder and or startup when deciding to invest?
So the question was, I'm just going to repeat the question just so everyone can hear. The question was, what are some key characteristics that you're looking for when you're investing in a founder and their startup?
So I guess, one of the keys for us is we're investing in the founder and the team. Like we mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of quantifiable data in the companies when we're investing them at our stage. So we're truly doing a lot of work and analysis and due diligence with the founder, co-founder, and the team to make sure, kind of going back to our name, you've got, the grit, you've got the nuts and the guts to take this to the next level. You got to have big shoulders if you're going to start a company. It's not all happy hours and coffees. There's long days, long hours. But I think one of the biggest things is your ability to be vulnerable. Willing to ask questions, to really show, hey, I've got these kinks in the armor. I know what I know, but I know what I don't know, and I need help. And so we want to make sure when we're meeting with founders and interviewing them, that we feel like we can have that sort of relationship with them. We respect them, we understand them, we know they know if it's engineering or SaaS development and things of that nature, but it's, do they really have the grit to kind of understand the ups and the downs of running a company or running a startup?
Other than capital, what do agtech companies in Nebraska need that they don't have right now?
Well, one of the biggest things in agtech are kind of the roadmap to an exit. So that's there's a couple things that are, with agtech, we've only had one unicorn. There's only $1 billion exit. That was Climate Corp back in 2013. So, there still is a dearth of capital out there, but I think in the agtech landscape, we've got to start seeing a maturing acquisition, exiting landscape for agtech companies. We're seeing some great momentum. We're seeing a lot of interest by, say, strategics to come in and help or do an acquisition, but we need to see these companies grow and mature, with larger funding rounds and things of that nature.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what the deal flow network looks like? Like, what's that third Thursday look like? How do you kind of run it?
It's really, really simple, Charlie. So it's as much as a Google Sheets that gets circulated around. We have, everybody in the deal flow network has access to it. And so we chime in at 8:30 on the third Thursday. Everybody kind of says their niceties. We typically have new people joining every time. So today we had a new fund that's being started out of the Research Triangle in North Carolina. So a young lady got on, said they're doing a $50 million fund, focusing on this one aspect of ag tech. They're affiliated with a different group. These are the deals they're looking for. We're looking for partners. Here's how many investments they've done. And so we'll go through those kind of general niceties and introductions, and then we kind of dive into the deals. And so today I believe we probably had 7 deals we walked through. And so if Move Capital was on the call today and you wanted to introduce Darrow, you could, Ben, you'd be on the Google sheet, and Ben or I would say, or Ben would say, Charlie Cuddy with Move Capital, we got you here with Darrow, and you can sit there and do probably a quick 2-minute spiel on what Darrow is, what they're looking to do, how much looking to raise, what you're thinking about it, blah, blah, blah. And then ultimately, if anybody has any comments, questions, they can either jump in quickly or move to the chat to then work through that. And so we're very sensitive on time because it's 8:30 Central Time. We've got people calling in from California and Washington, so they're getting up really early for the call, and you've got other people international. So we try to keep it really efficient and streamlined and walk through the deals that are out there. And then also at the end of it, it's more of a community update, what conferences are coming up, who's going to what conferences, is there anything that's important? Some of the ag accelerators will say, hey, we've got applications due, or we've got a pitch competition coming up. We're going to add this into the community section. So then everybody has access to that as well. So it's really turned out to be a great, case in point, last week was the World Agritech Innovation Summit in San Francisco. It's like the Super Bowl for ag tech. You'll say, why would that be in San Francisco? Great question, but we're hoping this is the last year it's in San Francisco. But anyways, a lot of the happy hours are put together based through this AgTech Deal Flow Network. Grit Road, we'll host a big happy hour, bring these people together, because obviously everybody's on Zoom, but if they get together, it gives them a chance to have a drink, shake hands, and get to know each other a little bit more personally. So, and we're having the Animal Ag Tech World Super Bowl is going to be in Dallas here in a month, and Grit Road will host a happy hour and invite the AgTech Deal Flow Network as well as others to kind of get together and kind of meet and greet. Very, very basic, Charlie. Ben and I are not going to try to do anything complicated.
I love that. It's basic, but it's powerful. And I think, it's interesting to consider that from investors that are, one part of their portfolio is ag tech, and being able to connect with you there. And also for investors that are focused on other segments, like could they start something like that in their own industry? Any other questions? Diageo?
Yeah, I have kind of a random question. I wrote this down. So I think innovative ideas, they take imagination and a willingness to try. It must be tough in rural communities. I mean, Greenwood was what, Aurora?
Aurora, yep.
So in Nebraska, where do people learn they can come up with ideas that make a bigger impact? Does Grit Road have a transformative effect in rural areas? Have you seen an opportunity for this with Grit Road, or are other organizations taking on this role in the rural areas?
Yeah, no, I think word of mouth is a big way for all of that to spread. Again, it goes back to, if you're in the rural community, just having the ability to reach out to find those networks. I mean, you're not going to have, maybe I'm talking out of place, but you're not going to have Scale Kearney, you're not going to have Scale Grand Island, Scale Gehring, or things of that nature. I'm sure there are little entrepreneurial kind of coffee meetings and things of that nature around the state, but we do, from a Grit Roads perspective, we do a really good job of getting out and meeting with kind of different organizations or families in the rural communities to make sure they're aware of our platform and what we're doing. I mean, we get calls all the time. I had a call 2 days ago from a farmer up outside Valentine who's wants to create a new healthier soybean oil. And he's got a whole process of how he feels that he and his son have developed, with a different kind of crushing process and things of that nature. It's really innovative. It's not a fit for us, but we're going to get him looped in with the right people at the university, to help them. I mean, we've got a great facility out in Mead, Nebraska. A lot of people probably aren't aware of, but the Eastern Nebraska Research and Development called MREC. It's a 10,000 acre petri dish. So it was an old ammunitions facility back in the day. So technically anything that's grown on it cannot go to human consumption. But it's 10,000 acres all consolidated outside Mead, Nebraska that the University of Nebraska uses for trials and sampling. They've got a feedlot out there. They've got all sorts of things out there. And so what we'll do for that gentleman, even though he's no fit for us, but we'll put him in touch with Derek McLean, who's the director of MREC, to get him entrenched there to understand how he can then navigate that system. But it just goes back to, if you've got the idea, you just got to go talk to people. You've got to put yourself out there. You can't hold it all in. And again, it's easy to get connected. Nebraska is 1.7 million people, so it's pretty easy to understand where and how.
I think there's this thing in like, I'm from a rural area, and like, you know, I thankfully had people in my community that had started pretty big businesses, and I saw that was a pathway that was possible. But I think for a lot of people, they just don't see that, right? But I think there's another thing where if you're new to the startup community or haven't been exposed to it at all, the idea of like sharing your idea sounds really scary. One, from a like, well, what if it fails? What if it doesn't do as well as I want it to? But also from people that are afraid that someone's gonna like steal their idea or something. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that. I mean, you know, people are always worried that they think they've got the holy grail and they've got the ticket. But I mean, a lot of times, you know, you're not really recreating the wheel. You're creating a different process, a different approach, and things of that nature. You know, I guess going back to the one thing that we need to do more of so that these entrepreneurs or businesses here across the state is we need to do a better job of promoting our successes. And so the grain weevils, the marbles, the bird's eyes, God, I'm trying to rack my brain on other companies, but you know, we've got to go out there and promote these successes. And that's not just in the ag tech, but all the other industries. We've just got to make sure everybody knows what we're up to. This, you know, and they're not always successes. There's failures, and I always say that's kind of like the scarlet letter here in the Midwest. Failing is still a bad word. Failure is okay. It's okay not to achieve your goal. It's okay if your company doesn't make it. It's just how you get up from that, after it doesn't achieve what you want it to be. And we've got to be more understanding of that here in the area. I mean, that's the one things the coasts have figured out. I mean, the founders out on the coast, they try something, they shut it down, they try something again, they keep chipping away. And we've got to have more of a culture that is embracing and adopting that mindset of it's okay to try something, and if it doesn't work, that's fine. At least you tried. Now let's see how you kind of recover, get up, move on, and try something else.
Yeah, that's huge, and I think I hear that echoed over and over and over and over again in our ecosystem. So it's good that people are talking about it, because I think founders need to know that, and it's hard to kind of overcome that cultural barrier that we have. But we can do it if we can just keep talking about it. And I think we have time for one more question, and then I have a final question, if we have one. Okay, I'll go on to my last one. Our last question at Scale Omaha always is, how can the startup ecosystem help you? Is there any way that the people sitting here listening to the video or anything can help you and Grit Road partners?
Good question. You know, I think just continue to support each other as entrepreneurs. I think that's key. I mean, that's one thing that we're constantly pushing our companies to do is within our portfolio, we really want our portfolio founders to work together, even though they're maybe not in the same sectors, but there's a lot of overlap, a lot of, you know, clients, suppliers, I mean, manufacturing qualms that they all are struggling with, software development issues, how they could help each other out. So I think, you know, from a Scale Omaha and understanding kind of the entrepreneurial community that's here, kind of continue to work with each other and kind of help each other out, because you'll all continue to grow and learn from each other's brain damage and ups and downs to become better companies, and we'll have more successes around here. And I'm biased, I'd like to have more agtech successes, but obviously successes in Omaha are huge and we need more of them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple announcements. Thank you, everybody, especially Mike, for being here today. If you want to follow along, we will be here every third Thursday of the month. So April 17th will be our next one. Same time, all along on LinkedIn, Scale Omaha, powered by the Nebraska Startup Academy, Olympic speakers. Everybody housed the pizza, so good job. You can get over to cross train. We'll have an open tab under Scale for the next about 30 minutes or so. So go watch the basketball, chat, mingle around. So thank you to Miller Collins for letting us host here. Enjoy.